Hey folks, it's Chef Kevin. Today I'm making chicken bone broth. Bone broth is very good for you, it's very healthy. It's good for your nails, your hair, your digestive system. And it tastes good. So that's what I'm going to do, is make chicken bone broth today. And this is a fairly easy recipe, but it is time consuming. There's no way to make a good chicken bone broth fast. It takes half a day. Okay, I have a chicken bone broth box here. Okay, per cup, 5 calories. It's nothing. No fat, no cholesterol. Sodium is 37%. That's high because this is not a reduced salt broth. Sugar, 1%. So there's really nothing in here but taste. And actually, this has become my morning drink. Instead of having coffee, I'd rather have a nice hot cup of chicken bone broth. It really gets me going. Wakes me up. I love it. Okay, the ingredients are easy. We have chicken and water. And what I'm going to do is just make the basic broth first. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take these two 4-pound chickens, simmer them in water for an hour, and then take the meat off of it. The meat I'll reserve for a soup down the road, and that'll be my basic broth. Broth is made from meat and or bones and or vegetables, but I'm just making the basic broth right now. I'm not going to use any spices at all, no vegetables. And then later on, I'm going to take the 2 carcasses from these chickens and add more bones to it to make the actual bone broth. And at the end of this video, I'll show you how to determine whether it's a good bone broth or not. Okay, let's get right into it. Okay, it's the collagen that's in the bones that gives bone broth the health qualities. And I want to show you, this is the label from one of my chickens, and these are the labels you should be looking for. This is a high quality chicken. It's non-GMO verified. It's humane treated, and of course it's USDA selected. So I have 2 4-pound chickens in here, 6 quarts of cold water, and what I'm going to do is bring it up to a simmer and let it simmer for an hour. I don't want to bring it to a boil. If you let it come to a boil, the fat and impurities could become soluble and go into the liquid. So you want to keep it nice and clear. See you in an hour. Okay, it's at a nice gentle simmer. You do not want to boil it. And if you look closely, you'll see some foam on the top, and that foam has to get removed. So I have a skimmer here and a bowl of water, and what I do is just clean the spoon in the water. And this has to be done several times during the course of the cooking process. these are the impurities that are in any type of poultry, and you want to remove it because you want to keep the broth nice and clear. Okay, gonna keep letting it simmer. Okay, it's been an hour and 10 minutes or so. Chickens look nice and cooked. And what I'm going to do now is simply take the chickens out, reserve them, and then I'm going to take the broth and put that in an ice bath to cool it quickly. So I have a cooler here. I'm out in my front yard actually. There's a block of wood on the bottom so that the pan doesn't rest on the actual plastic. It's my chicken broth. This is going to be one nice broth that has the flavor of 2 whole chickens in there. Now you want to cool this down fast because you don't want bacteria to get in there. So okay, that was 1 bag of ice. Needs another bag. Okay, put some ice in the actual broth. That'll cool it down quick. Gonna fill it up with water to almost the top of the pot. And that's the ice bath method. This will actually cool down in about 20 minutes, and then I can start making the actual bone broth. At this point, this could be considered bone broth because it's made from chicken bones. But it's not going to meet my satisfaction of a real bone broth. I'm going to add a bunch of bones, cook them for several hours, and then add the vegetables. The vegetables give it a lot of flavor. If it's just made from bones alone with a little meat, there wouldn't be much flavor because there's not a lot of flavor in the bones. The bones just provide the gelatin. Okay, 20 minutes and we're ready to go. Okay, so I transferred the cooled chicken broth back into the 16-quart stock pot, and now I'm going to add the bones This will give it the gelatin that I like to see in a bone broth. Lots of gelatin. Okay, I have 2 pounds, or actually 2.5 pounds of chicken paws or chicken feet. These are excellent for making soups, stocks, and broths because they're basically all bone, a lot of connective tissue. And I also have 2 pounds of smoked turkey wings. These things are smoked, they're salted. So I'm not going to add any salt yet. I'm not even going to add the vegetables yet. The vegetables only take an hour or so to cook, so that'll be at the very end of the process. I took a little sample of this turkey wing. It's actually very tough meat. I don't know what people do with these other than use them for soups and stocks. It's very hard to eat. Very chewy. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a stock pot. The broth is cold. It cannot be hot. If you put the meat into the hot liquid, the fat will dissolve itself into the broth and make it very cloudy. So you have to start out cold. I'm going to bring it up to a simmer like I did earlier. I'm not going to boil it. And this is going to take about 6 hours. One thing I am going to add is a couple of tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And what this does is it helps break down the bones and extract that gelatin. I just made one slight mistake, folks. I opened up my refrigerator door and realized I forgot to put in the 2 original chicken carcasses. This is it. This is going to really bring a lot of flavor and a lot of taste to that bone broth. So this is what it looks like after 6 hours at a simmer. The meat has fallen off the bone. Everything looks like quite a mess. And what I'm going to do now is take this spider and remove as much of the solids as I can, and then add the vegetables and cook it for an additional hour. Now let's take a look at the vegetables. The vegetables are very important because they add a lot of flavor. Now all this meat in here is all trash. All the flavor of the meat has been transferred to the water, and at this point it's dried out. Even though it's cooked in water, it's dried out and inedible. So all those solids are trash. So here are the vegetables. And as I said before, vegetables are very important because they contribute quite a lot to the flavor of the broth. And all these vegetables are super healthy and super tasty. So let me show you what I got here. I have a whole yellow onion, and the dice is not that important. It can be a rough dice because this is all going to be trashed at the end. I have a shallot. I have some sage here. Dill. Dill goes very well with chicken, as does rosemary. I have some dried red peppers here, give it a little kick. Celery, of course. Carrots. Garlic, nice and healthy. Ginger, nice and healthy. I have some mushrooms, nice and healthy as well. I'm going to add about a dozen or so black peppercorns. And I found a little bottle of wine. in my refrigerator, so before this spoils, I'm going to add that to the broth, and the alcohol will evaporate off, just leaving a slight taste of wine. Pinot Grigio. Okay, I'm going to add these to the pot and let it cook down for about an hour. And you may be asking yourself, why didn't I add these earlier? Okay, there's two reasons why I didn't add these earlier. Number one is the fact that the stock pot was so full, I really didn't have room for the vegetables. But more importantly, vegetables are very delicate compared to smoked turkey wings and chicken feet. They only need an hour or so to cook. So if you overcook them, you could risk having a broth that is bitter. So that's the reason why I did that. Okay, I'm going to add these to the pot, cook them for an hour, and then strain the broth into another container and cool that down into an ice bath. Okay, the vegetables have been simmering for an hour and 15 minutes or so. They've given up all their delicious flavor and nutrition into the water. So what I'm going to do now is bring it down to the garage and put it in the ice bath. Okay, so the vegetables have been simmering for about an hour and 15 minutes. And at this point, they've given all their flavor and nutrition into the broth. So what I'm going to do now is go down to the garage and pour this through a strainer into another pot that is in an ice bath. You want to cool this down as quickly as possible. Now, as far as the vegetable selection goes, you can use just about anything. I would avoid using something like potato or a parsnip or a turnip because they have a lot of starch in it, and that would make your broth cloudy. And a lot of people probably wouldn't put hot peppers in there, but I do because I like it nice and spicy. So it's up to you. And remember, you are the boss of your broth. So once again, this is the ice bath. Same as before, except now I'm straining it through a fine mesh strainer. This will be cool in about 15-20 minutes. And then I can decant it and place it either in the refrigerator, which will last for a month or so. Sorry, place it in the freezer, which will last a month or so. And I'll put some in the refrigerator for use as well. This has quite a bit of fat on it, which is normal, but that's going to be removed, and that's what I'm going to show you in the next segment. And then of course I want to show you what makes a good bone stock a good bone stock. Okay, so it's cooled down completely, and the fat has risen to the top, and that's actually a natural fat. So if you want to save that and use it to fry eggs in or anything, you can do that. And that's what my German mother did. This is called schmaltz. So I'm just going to remove that. This is not going to remove all of it, but this will remove some of it, and the rest of it will be removed later. Okay, the next step to do is to decant it. So after everything has been said and done, I ended up with 11.5 quarts of beautiful homemade bone broth, chicken bone broth. And I'm going to put some in the freezer and some in the fridge, and then I'm going to let it cool down, and then I'm going to show you exactly what makes a good bone broth a good bone broth. Okay folks, this is Chef Kevin's world famous chicken bone broth. Okay, moving right along. This is one of the 11.5 quarts that I just made, and as you can see, it has a layer of fat on top of it, and all you have to do is take a spoon and scrape it off. Comes right off. Now you can save that fat. That is, it's a natural fat. You can fry eggs in it or whatever. It has a lot of taste to it. Or you can just discard it, although you don't want to put it down your drain because it could clog eventually. In Europe, they would definitely save this and use it as a cooking oil, but not so much here in the US. But at any rate, what I really want to show you is how gelatinous this is. You can see that. And that, of course, is from all the gelatin from the bones. So that's what makes it nice and healthy. And there's plenty of taste in here because I used a whole bunch of vegetables, healthy vegetables. Now, what is the difference between a stock and a broth? They're both clear liquids. However, a stock would be even more concentrated. It would be almost a solid as opposed to jelly-like. And you could use either one for a bone broth. Now what I would do is I would cut this with an equal amount of commercial chicken broth because it's just too rich and too gelatinous to eat as is. And same thing with a stock, you would have to add a certain amount of water or bone broth or broth to get the desired level of taste that you like. So this took me pretty much all day to make, but I know what's in it, I know it's good, so I'm satisfied with the results even though it took me quite a long time. And I can have 22 meals using this 11 quart stock if I cut it in half. So I'm looking forward to that. This will last a few weeks. Okay, thanks for watching this rather lengthy video. I tried to put out as much information as I could. Okay, this is Chef Kevin. Hasta mañana.